Okay. This is the first of 3 scheduled joint Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance meetings for the purpose of reviewing the operating budgets of the various town departments. Before we get started, our first selectman, Beth Heller, would like to make a few remarks. Beth?
I promise to be quick. I'd just like to take a moment to highlight and express deep appreciation for the work our town's first responders did during this long weekend storm. As you know, we were really walloped by this ice and windstorm. Many trees and tree limbs fell due to ice accumulation, blocking roads and taking down power lines. An overwhelming number of calls were answered by our dedicated firefighters, police personnel, public works road crew, and our animal control officers over the last 3 days. These men and women are always there when we need them, and I want to express gratitude for all they do on behalf of our residents. Our Human Services Department also sprang into action to open the emergency shelter, and their work to provide a place to warm up and charge devices for all affected residents is appreciated, as always. Warmest thanks also to the JCC for opening their doors to members and non-members alike for warming, charging stations, and hot showers. Thank you to them as well. In addition to our first responders, I also want to acknowledge and thank those residents who offered to open their homes to neighbors, to charge devices, get warm, take a hot shower, or simply get a cup of coffee. The spirit of neighbor reaching out to neighbor in times of trouble is inspirational. This is what makes Woodbridge a truly wonderful community, and thank you, everyone. I'm told we're down to about 45 households. That was when I wrote this afternoon. We are down now to 8 households that are still without power, and we will work tirelessly to get that down to 0 as soon as possible. Thank you, Matt, and everyone else for indulging me. And with that, I turn the meeting back over to you.
Okay,
thank you so much.
Okay, well, the first item on our agenda, we were going to hear from Scott Bassett, the partner in charge of our audit, but he could not make it, unfortunately, tonight, so we're going to reschedule him for another Board of Finance meeting.
Probably, yeah.
And we can invite certainly the Board of Selectmen would like to listen, we could invite them.
Summary sheet.
Okay, so the first...
Just want to make a couple comments.
Oh, yeah,
Before we start. First is I'm passing around a summary sheet of the department requests for you to review and to keep with you while we go through the budget process. So it's just so if you follow the sheet, the requests came in at 7.8% over last year's budget. And the revenues are still being worked on. The one large item we're waiting for is the state revenues. So until we get the state revenues from Hartford, we're sort of got to wait and see on that. Some of the others are pretty solid, like the department charges, but the grants we're still waiting on. And we're still waiting for Betsy to finish the grand list. So that's flat at the moment also. So I wanted to share that. The other item is we have both of our contracts are in negotiation. So you will not see salary increases in the salary lines for employees. So if you notice, there's a lot of 0 increases. That is the reason. Contingency is a little larger than usual for that reason. It's a common practice that we've done in the past. Okay? Okay.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Needless to say, this is a large number, so we'll be hard at work. Okay. Gentlemen, you get the privilege of being the first ones to present. I think every year we do this. You're always first. Frank, I would suggest, if I may, if you want to go through staffing in general, and then highlight for us the areas in the budget that seem to be increasing by a large amount, and any other highlights you'd like to point out to us for your department.
Okay, good. And if I could, Matt, with your permission, if I could just have just a minute or two just to make a couple little comments, just to share a little bit of what's going on with us over the past year or so in ensuring this public safety of the entire community. So in addition to the 10,000 residents, we have that transient population that constantly increases and fluctuates daily. Not only those that travel the 5 state highways that intersect the town, but also the students, the faculty, and the staff at Beecher School, the regional high school, and the JCC, which are, we all know, the largest venues in town here. So, and also, with, being right on the border, directly adjacent to New Haven, and with Waterbury just to our north, our community, just like others in the area, have been experiencing the spillover into the suburbs of crime. It's shooting out from the cities. We've seen it with the burglary and larcenies in the commercial district, and an upsurge of stolen cars and larcenies from vehicles in our, the private residences, our own driveways. We still have the banks in town, and they're all in close proximity to New Haven and close proximity to the Merritt Parkway and the main, Route 63 and Route 69. And as always, they continue to be very seen as a great opportunity for the criminal element. This past April, we experienced that terrible homicide over on Rimmon Road. It occurred at 10 o'clock in the morning. It put the schools and part of the town into a lockdown. It involved firearms, and it left one person dead. Although, for the last 10 months, we were pretty tight-lipped about the investigation. Rightfully so. It was just, we didn't want to compromise the integrity of the investigation, and that's why a lot of information could not be leaked out to the public, and a lot of it's still ongoing now, so it can't be shared. But I can't tell you, it did expand across country from, little old Woodbridge here, all of us here, right out to California and down as far as Florida, and so across the country. But as a result of a lot of, dedication and hard work, as you saw a few weeks ago, some arrests were made, and some bad people were off the street, and we're a lot safer because of that. And right now, it's the process and the investigation is still ongoing, so there'll be more to follow with that. Just quickly, all of our personnel remain certified well in excess of the state required basic mandates, and our civilian dispatchers are all now certified in both emergency medical dispatch and emergency fire dispatch, as we work further to enhance and complement our first responders at all levels, police, fire, and EMS. And despite reduction in staffing that we experienced over the past couple of years, we still continue to get the job done and make things work with what we have. And as you know, we have keeping 2 full-time school resource officers at the high school, in the Beach Road School, one respectively there. And we have collaborated with the surrounding agencies to form a special response team, and also to work together to regionalize accident reconstruction and active shooter training. And finally, we continue to move forward with the high school IT department to share resources and maximize our efficiency on the IT side. So with that, I'll get into the budget, but thank you. Did you want to start with, Matt, staffing, you said
Yeah,
first?
if you just want to mention quickly how many officers we currently have, how many are in the academy, where we're headed with that. There's always a lot of discussion about that.
Right. So currently, we're funded for 25 altogether at the police department. So that consists of the deputy chief and myself, and then 23 sworn personnel. So that's 18 officers and 5 sergeants. And we're at that point now where we will be fully staffed. We have the final hiree, the new hire starts February 4th. So at that point, we're fully staffed. And that puts us up to where we want to be. We were at 26, now we're back down to the 25. There was a shift in administration from, so it's just deputy chief and myself right there. And there's remains with the 6 dispatchers that we've carried that same number, that continues. And if you'd like, I prepared a breakdown. Maybe we could just pass these out. And it breaks down how many officers we have and what shifts they're assigned to, and there's also a copy of the 2-week detail there, so you can see how they're deployed.
you.
If anybody's any questions, I can try to clarify that for you as far as the schedule goes.
So basically, there's 4 officers per shift, and there's 3 shifts per day? Is that the way it works?
Yeah, well, there's 4 officers per squad, say. So the way those are broken down, like 11 to 7, 7 to 3, and 3 to 11.
Yeah.
There's 1 sergeant designated to that squad and 4 officers designated to that squad, but they don't all work the same days. So they're not all working that same shift. So they bid for every quarter. So they bid for 3 months to work, say, 11 at night till 7 in the morning. So those 4 people bid for that, but they're not actually working each shift that day, because they work a 5-2, 5-3 schedule, so there's days off in there. So we don't almost ever have that many people working at once.
Okay.
So they have days, their contractual schedule plus vacation time, sick time, schedule changes for training, bereavement time.
Okay, so for an average shift, how many officers are there? I presume there's always a sergeant?
There's not always a sergeant.
There's not, okay.
Because when the sergeant's off, like say on the midnight shift, there's the officers and there's 1 sergeant. Now, in a 2-week period, as you probably can see on that second page there. So in that 2-week period, the sergeant the first week will have, say, 3 days. He'll work 5 days on, have 3 days off. Then he'll work another 5 days on, then he'll have 2 days off. So in that 2-week period, he'll have 5 days off. So
Okay.
during that span, on midnights, there's no supervisor.
Okay,
And that same pattern follows right through on the other 2 shifts, with the exception on the 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. shift. The IT sergeant and training sergeant works Monday through Friday, 3 to 11. So when the evening sergeant there, the 3 to 11 sergeant, is on his days off, and it falls during the week, the IT and training sergeant covers for him. And same during the day, on the day shift, when the patrol sergeant happens to be on his schedule of days off,
yes.
the detective sergeant will
We'll
do
step
both
in.
roles.
Okay, thank you.
So try to cover that way.
I know, Frank, we'll just ask you.
Yeah.
You've increased significantly overtime for police officers, investigation, training overtime, if I can read these across, and dispatchers overtime. Just want to explain that?
Sure. We'll start with the police officer overtime, probably that'd be the best one, 50430. So looking back at that, we increased it to provide a realistic figure of what we anticipate to spend. Looking back historically for the past 5 years, back in fiscal year 13, we were up like at 187,000, and it fluctuated all the way down. But during my past 2 years as chief, we've been working together with Ray and with our board. We were able to keep it to the lowest that it has ever been over the last 5 years. And so that's, how we came to that. Additionally, the first 6 months of this year, since we adopted the budget in July of last year, since that started, after that, we've entered into an agreement, the town entered into an agreement with the sergeants. After the lieutenant's position was eliminated, So we had to share responsibilities of his duties, and we passed them out amongst the sergeants. And one of the agreements that was reached with the union and the town on that was that the sergeant would no longer be a part of minimum manpower. So we have a 2-man minimum staffing level. Bare minimums can't go below 2. And so if people took vacation or whatever we ran short, the sergeant would assume a patrol. So that was done away with, and the agreement was that they would cover that shift to allow the sergeant to do his supervisory duties. They would cover it with voluntary overtime if somebody wanted that. And because of that, it has generated a significant amount of overtime, and that's also brought up our overtime there. And then just the other thing was, as people's longevity and seniority goes up, their overtime rates go up, and that also pushed it forward. So it's kind of a ripple effect, right, all the way out.
But you plan on being fully staffed,
We do.
correct?
Yeah, so as far as that voluntary overtime goes, as long as we could keep fully staffed, theoretically, that should be reduced, correct?
Okay, so this is based on what your current experience is when you were not fully staffed, correct? The 130,000?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
so that if you are fully staffed, maybe that's an area to reduce?
Hopefully so, yes.
Okay. Okay,
Barring any
Sure.
significant
understood.
incidents, but yes.
Yeah.
So I have a question about staffing levels. If you have 24 hours in a day and 365 days in a year, and you want to cover that with one individual working a 2,000-hour year, which is a 40-hour week, and 50 weeks a year, you need 4.38 individuals to have a one-man deep coverage. You follow what I'm saying?
Well, I follow
Okay,
what you're
so-
saying on paper, but
All right, so you've got 18 officers. Let's take 2 of them out of the rotation because they go to the Highland schools, which would give you 16. So you should be able to have a 3-man deep shift if the officers are working 2,000 hours a year. Is that correct?
Does that
Right.
include vacation and sick time?
Well, if you're talking 2 weeks vacation, it does.
Yeah, they get more than that.
If they get more than that,
2015,
there's still a fraction of an officer, over that. So I guess what my question is, why, why do we have overtime on top of that? You should have enough staff if they're working 2,000 hours a year.
well, I would say to that is that, on paper that looks good, but in real life, I mean, the officers, if they're not working just those hours, things happen, at the end of shifts, people have to work double shifts, we have storms, so on and so forth. People have to be in court, there's sicknesses, people out of work, people, go out on injuries and their extended absences that have to be covered, and to provide those services, if you strictly just went by the numbers and everything was in black and white, it looks good, but in the all real world, it doesn't work that way, and historically it's been shown that way. I mean, going back to 2002, the town had a management and staffing study done back then. That was 17 years ago, and that study showed that we were at 24 then, and they encouraged, their recommendation was that we would increase to 26, a staff of 26 at that time, to create a school, to create a deer officer and to put someone on a special assignment. And we were at 26, and that also encountered a different command structure than what we have now. And we had that all in place since, for many years now. And then most recently that was changed, so we went back from, instead of going from 24, we got up to the 26 and it worked really well for years. We went back down now to 25, and out of that 25, we now have 2 full-time school resource officers, no one on any kind of special narcotics-related assignments, during this terrible opioid crisis time, and one less administrator or supervisor, and one supervisor assigned to do IT services. So we don't really have that, the numbers that, you know, when you portray it that way, if we had that many and it was black and white and there was no other variables, you know, it might work on paper, but to make it work and to provide the services that everybody, you know, has been given and expects, that's what we need.
But I just like to add to that is that, you know, depending on the longevity of each of the officers, the 23 officers, they could have between 10 and 29 days off a year of vacation. And you figure that into that whole perspective, you're talking it's not going to be that amount. So there's a lot of coverage associated with that, which includes, I mean, then you can on top of that, you want to put sick time if they're off sick, or training, because every 3 years they're required to go through 65 hours of mandated training. In a lot of cases we give them more than that, but they're mandated to do at least 65 hours. So you take that away from that, and that's all that coverage that really affects a lot of the overtime too.
So is the training that they're required to take, is that, are they paid overtime on that? Or are they?
Sometimes they're paying on overtime. We have an account in the budget that pays for that overtime.
Right, but so I guess.
But if they can be sent on, you know, like if we have 3 officers on the shift,
Right.
Plus a sergeant, and then the training officers would maybe schedule one of those guys, or maybe 2 of those officers that could go to the training. You're only paying overtime for one of them if they're going during their shift. But that's, and we've reassigned people that work on midnights if the manpower is there. But that's what shortens those particular shifts. That you say that, you know, you have 4 officers and a sergeant, you should be able to cover every shift every day for that 40-hour period. But you really, realistically, you can't, because there's so many variables that click in. If you look at that 2-week schedule that the chief had provided for you, you know, take 4 officers and just go to any one of these shifts and try to put those 4 officers in each of those days, and let's add a couple of vacation days. Let's add a couple, maybe somebody books off sick. This is where all the overtime comes from. And this is what the difficulty of us, even with 4 officers, is trying to, you know, provide coverage for the town with, like the chief said, a minimum of 2 officers every night. And, you know, in some cases, it's almost scary.
So that study that you had done in 2002, is that a workload study?
It was a management and staffing study. I'm not sure
It wasn't
exactly
based on
what-
workload.
Can we get, do you have a copy of that, Chief?
Not here, but I
No,
do.
no, but I
Yes,
mean, you could
certainly,
provide
yeah.
that to us. I think I've read it, but I'm not
Yes,
sure if
yeah,
it's the
yeah, we've
same
discussed
one.
it, at least during my
Yeah,
last
I'm
2.5
not sure if
years
it's the
here.
same, so
Discussed it
that'd be
before
great if
too,
you
but
can-
yes.
I mean, there was a recommendation in 2014 by the South Central Criminal Justice Administration to do a workload study. Do you know if that's ever been done? See if your
I
staffing
believe
levels
that
are
study
adequate?
was requested and was attempted, and I think they were also doing that with Ansonia PD.
Ansonia found out that
Right.
you know, based on the way the study was being provided, and I think, Joe, that I think
Well,
you
my
were actually the one that
understanding of that
requested
was
it.
it went nowhere because we couldn't get them the data that they wanted. That's my understanding. I don't know if that's
No,
true.
but it wasn't even just us, it was all the towns that used this,
Whatever it
system
was,
that was
I'm not,
being used, right.
I'm just saying,
He
we
wasn't
couldn't
happy with
get
it.
it, so the
Correct.
study kind of went
Yeah.
nowhere. That's
yes.
what happened with that, for whatever the reasons were.
You think that would be useful to pursue?
Well, I know we won't be able to pursue it with that South Central Criminal Justice Administration, because they're the ones that tried it, and they said that they could not complete that with the records that they were getting, not just from us, but from all the towns that use the same record-keeping system in the area.
And we haven't changed that, right?
No, and none of the towns have, so you'd have to get another source of information, I
I
guess.
know the International Association of Chiefs of Police does that as well.
I am sure we can make an inquiry of them and see if they could. I'm not exactly
'Cause,
sure
you know,
how that
we
works.
might
with
find that you
specific-
have not enough police officers, too many police officers,
Right.
or just the right number, you know, the Goldilocks
Yeah, no,
approach.
I have no objection if, you know, if the town wants to order a study to determine that, would be fine. we're just still going off the facts of what was, the study that was done in 2002, and the world's a lot different now, society's a lot different in my interpretation, you know, and to have less than what was recommended 17 years ago, you know, I just mean we get it done, but we're cutting the limit pretty much there for.
But, you know, you come out here every year and we put you on the spot.
No, I
to
understand.
defend your budget. And,
Right.
you know, if we have some numbers behind it, it would say, well, you know, these are the numbers, this is what I need, you know. The rest of you guys just don't bother me anymore. So, just throw that out.
It might even be helpful to bring Charlie Sherwood in. I mean, the Director of South Central Criminal Justice. I mean, he's you know, pretty much educated pretty well into a lot of these studies that are going on throughout the country, where we might be incorporated into our, you know, what we do here, and maybe out in California, we wouldn't be able to use the study that, or the information that they use.
Specifically, they look at staffing for peak periods, where the loads are, you know, where you can cut back on officers and how you can use your personnel most efficiently. I know you have one sergeant who's in IT who's not, you know, not involved in the day-to-day operations of policing.
No, we do, and that's something, you know, that was initiated like 6 or 7 years ago, and really the only way to make a change with that would be to, you know, if you want to make a complete change of that, we'd have to hire, you know, maybe a civilian to do that, but in working with the Amity IT department, we're trying to capture more of his police-related duties and reduce some of his IT-related duties, but, you know, we'll still have his hand in the mix with it, but we're trying to make that shift. That's kind of what the goal of the Amity program partnership is.
Yeah, I just wonder if it's better for your department to have that sergeant available for police work and have someone else do the IT who's not a sworn officer.
Yeah, I mean, that would definitely be better. It would give us one more full-time supervisor, and but we'd need the resources to get somebody to cover that. But,
thank you.
you're welcome.
Just one other question, I guess, we were talking about workload studies and all. Do you have any idea as to what time of the day you're busiest with calls or activities where the police have to respond?
I don't have the exact hours when I could get that breakdown, but, you know, obviously it would be pretty much during the day, the evening shift, the midnight, overnight shift is always traditionally, you know, much quieter, but as soon as traffic picks up and everybody gets on the roads, we increase that way and into the evening, and also on the weekends.
Okay, yeah, that'd be.
But there is a way to, with our, you know, with the records management system that we have, there's definitely a way to capture that.
Okay, that'd be great, thank you.
Is there any other? Go ahead.
Yeah, so when it comes to the overtime, so oftentimes we always budget for a full complement. And I'm trying to remember, I don't think there's been a year since I've been here that you've had a full complement the entire year.
Right.
Whether it's due to retirements or injuries or, so oftentimes it's a balance between the overtime and the staffing level. So typically what we do is we budget for a full complement of officers, but we acknowledge the fact that there's oftentimes money left in your salary line. For instance, if you look in the projected 19, you see the budget is 1.5, but the projected is a little under 1.4. So you can see, because you're just now fully staffed, right, and you've had 6 months of not being fully staffed, there's salary money there. So usually when we get to the budget, and the Board of Finance, there's usually a balance there that we try to strike between the two. So it's not always funded I guess what I'm getting at is the overtime's not always funded completely, because oftentimes there's a surplus in salary, but that's a risk that we would take.
It's going to become a lot difficult now that we are fully staffed.
You're fully staffed now, but like I said, I hope you're always fully staffed, but that's never often the case.
Certainly.
Yes.
It's been easier for your job was easier before, now it's going to get a little bit more difficult.
Right.
And even now, as we go ahead, we do have somebody that's been out on an extended illness for quite some time now.
Right.
And we're hopefully anticipating that, you know, he'll be able to return, but that's still to be determined. So even though we say we're fully staffed, you know, we're really not.
Right.
You know, hopefully we will be, but, you know, in black and white, we look like we're fully staffed, but that body's not here. So that that's a vacancy that we have to cover with the staffing that we do have for the time being.
And not really to belate that, but last year, just to note that we asked for 120,000 and we got 100,000, so we're asking for 130, so it's really not a $30,000 increase in our overtime. It's actually, realistically, we're only asking for 10 more, but that's, if that makes sense.
So Tony, if somebody's out on medical leave, who pays the salary?
Depends on the, if it's medical leave because it's a work-related injury, the town is paid, the workers' compensation insurance pays most of it, about 70% of it. The town covers the rest. If it's the employees, it's unrelated to work, the employee uses sick time, and if they don't have sick time, then they won't get paid. Sometimes there's sick times donated, sometimes not, but if they don't have sick time remaining, then they would not be paid.
Okay, I'm gonna move this along a little. We got a lot of people waiting. Frank, is there anything else in here that you'd like to mention? It looks pretty standard. I don't see any.
Yeah, there's nothing, out of the ordinary, but just one thing under capital machinery there at the
Some guns?
near the end, the firearms. So our current firearms are reaching the end of their serviceable use. They're already about 8 years old, and so they need to be replaced, approaching that 10-year mark. That's recommended by the manufacturer to either, service them or replace them or move forward with them. That's not something new. I mean, since I've been here, this would be the third time that if we move ahead with that. It's more cost effective to do that. It's safer to do that, and we want to get that done. So the cost is in there for that. It will be definitely be under $10,000. And the only thing I would ask, I don't know, and I could talk to Tony about that too, but also present it to the board, if there's any chance that we could somehow get that in the works, sooner than later. Because if we wait till July 1st, if we could get the guns ordered before then, we could get a deal on the guns that we want to get. But more importantly, we could phase them into our next training round for firearms qualifications, make the transition there, because we have to qualify at certain time periods, and that will enable us to get the new firearms and make a transition and train with them, so not to have to double train and use old ammunition for the old ones. So
we
that's
can take a
something
look at
maybe
that,
we
Tony.
could
Yeah.
talk about.
We could talk about that.
Sure.
Yeah, so that would be huge for us just to get going with that. And other than that, really, nothing else
Anybody have
very
any specific
significant.
questions on anything?
Yes, under regional services, the 52300, in your detailed description, you have an annual assessment for $12,000. What is that?
Well, that's through South Central Criminal Justice Administration. So those are the ones that oversee all the professional executive training for us, policies.
So do they do an annual assessment of the department every year?
No, that's, Ray, you could probably
Are
explain
these
But they,
that, what
but they,
mean by
but they
this.
would, they're the ones that did the study in 2002
Right.
and did it as well in 2014.
Tried in
at no cost.
2014, right.
They provide that service to all the area towns. They provide us with our training. It's kind of like IACP, but it's on a local level, or Connecticut Chiefs of Police Association. It's the 30 towns in the South Central region. There's 18 that are involved in it right now that keep up on all the new things that are coming out, whether it be general orders or anything like that. We meet once a month. But that assessment covers a lot of things, like the training or the testing for the new officers. They do all the testing, which includes, the actual test, the physical examination that they have to do, and the oral examination that goes on for just the entry-level type of officers. They do sergeant's exams for us if we have promotions, lieutenant's exams if we have a lieutenant. They do all the promotional exams for us.
Okay.
So they do a lot of the administrative work that any.
All right, so it's like dues for services that they provide back
Correct.
to the area departments.
But there's a lot of areas that they do cover
okay.
at no cost.
Okay.
And that's what that $1,200.
And it's something that
$12,000.
all the agencies
It's really not dues.
in this area are involved in, almost mandatory kind of thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
Well, I don't have a question, but congratulations to both of you on the arrest that you made on this terrible crime. From what I understand, this was a team effort between many agencies and somebody that was crisscrossing the country with multiple identities and so on. This was a big accomplishment for our department.
Thank you. And not so much to us, but to people, all the people below us as well, that their dedication and hard work too.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We'll look into that gun thing, Frank. We'll look into that gun thing. I think we can probably
Okay, good,
make
thanks.
that happen. If it's not, if it's gonna save time, it's gonna save money, right?
Yes, for sure.
Double train or whatever? Yeah.
Yes. Good, thanks.
That's the big thing.
Yeah, we can work on that.
Is the training issue, trying to get it in within that time
Yeah,
period.
we can work on that. Okay, take
Thank
care.
you.
Thanks.
Tax collector. And that is tab 1155. Let's see here. That's not good. Tax collector. Now, these salaries are in already?
Well, that's, those are, I'm glad you asked that question.
They're in ours.
Oh,
These
warrant,
are, The cost of living adjustments are not in here.
I got you.
These were, due to reorganization in finance that we did,
Okay.
they assumed additional duties, and that's,
Okay.
that's
I
what
remember
that's for.
We eliminated a position.
I remember that.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember that.
So those percentages don't include the cost of.
correct. That's from,
No, they eliminated.
No, I understand.
And they, and the tax collector's
Right.
office took their
there's
responsibility.
no cost of living adjustments in any of the budgets.
Right.
So if you see an increase, it's either for a reason like that, or it could be a step increase for an employee who may be on a union
Just the
scale.
contractual.
Right, right.
Okay, we have Pat Crisco with us tonight, and is there anything in particular you want to highlight, Pat? There's not much here.
Doesn't sound
I mean,
very
not much
good.
here as far as changes.
Right.
That didn't come out right.
No, it did not come out right. There's a lot there.
I've an increase in postage. They decided to raise our stamps to 50 cents from 47. Although we don't normally pay on our big bulk mailings that much anyway, it does affect it. And that starts next first of the month, I think.
27.
Yeah, thank you.
I think we can handle that $200, Pat.
Thank you. Legal ads. That's a big issue because we're required by the state to do legal ads. And we were using the Milford Orange Bulletin, which at one point was being delivered to every household in Woodbridge.
Yeah, not anymore.
It is no longer they're not longer doing that. So we had to go with the register, which is all part of the same issue.
Nobody
But-
gets to register anymore.
That doesn't
But
get
doesn't,
delivered
yeah,
either.
doesn't the Woodbridge Town News go to all households?
It's not on the timing that I have to use.
Really?
Yeah. That's also, I'm required to do it at certain times of each, in January and in July. And it doesn't fall during that time. We also were on the newsletter, we're on the webpage for the town. Hopefully people look at it. It's all there. But we still have to do the legal ads until they decide in Hartford to change it, which they won't because there's a large lobby from the newspapers. Printing and binding will go up a little bit. Our car allowance is high. It's not only that we go to the bank for our office, but we also, I think you all know, we do all the deposits for the other offices in town. And usually go twice a day, especially if we have cash. Everything else pretty much stayed the same. Anybody have any questions?
Are there any major tax
Yeah,
items out there that you're trying to collect?
a lot. I
Really?
have one really big one, and it's gone to foreclosure. They stopped it at the first court date, but we should have heard something by last Friday. We didn't, so now it'll go to foreclosure.
Well, the good news is you're always right. It's just a
We're
question
always
of,
right.
it's just a question of
They
whether
owe
or
us
not
the
they're gonna
money.
get
I
it
don't
today. Right.
Yeah, sorry about
Taxes are
that.
taxes. Go to
Yeah.
any court you want.
Yeah.
Okay, any question? And of course, we're still up there, we're still not quite at 100%, Pat.
I know, well, the only town that's 100% is Torrington, and they sell their,
Is that, oh, yeah, okay.
they sell theirs. That's why they get, but that also means you don't get any interest.
That's right.
And,
That's true.
and interest is a nice
Yeah.
amount of ours.
You might as well, as long as you're hearing people are watching, you might as well let everybody know when they have to pay their taxes by,
Oh, please be in my office by February 1st,
which is next Friday.
in the office,
Next Friday.
next Friday. We will be here on Saturday, this coming Saturday from 9 to 12. And Friday the 1st, the last day to pay, we will be here till 7 o'clock.
Okay.
And that's it.
That's great. Well, that's why it's 99.5.
That's right.
Percent of the collection rate.
That's what we try for, yeah.
If they come in at 7 o'clock next Friday, you're not gonna be able to bring it to the bank probably until Monday, so they get a little extra time.
No, we'll go Saturday. Somebody will have
Yeah,
a
but it doesn't
bag
get
ready,
credited until
believe
Monday.
me.
Yeah, right, that's,
If you wanna buy a few days.
It's that cash getting out of here that we have to do.
Okay, any other questions for Pat? No? Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Great job.
99 is pretty good, Pat.
9.5.
Right.
Next we have the assessor, which is Department 1160, and the Board of Assessment Appeals, which is 1165. And with us tonight is Betsy.
Hello.
Okay.
Hi, Betsy. How are you?
Anything in particular you want to mention about your budget?
so Betsy's has got a step increase. You'll see,
Oh, okay,
we mentioned earlier.
okay.
I did?
Her employee, your
Oh,
employee's got a step
darn.
increase. You're at the top step.
Keep thriving for that step.
I see a lot of zeros here.
Falling off of the step.
I see a lot of zeros here, Betsy. We like
Yeah,
it.
the only thing that I acquired a new lease for a copier in my office, so now I have two leases. I have a lease for my copier and a lease for my plotter. And we always overrun that printing and binding line, so, I mean, you cut it, I go over, it does get absorbed in another line, but I put it there, so just to let you know that I probably need that money, but. And then we're in a reval year. Welcome 2019. So that is why the car allowance went up, because I used my personal car for inspections. And then everything else was status quo. Nothing else changed, really.
Okay, any questions on Betsy's budget? All right, move to the next tab. 140%, what's this?
Well, in the reval year, basically we double everything. It's not necessarily means we use it, but there probably will have more than 3 regular meetings.
Okay.
So they are the only board in the state that gets paid. So for new members, if you don't know that, yes, the Board of Assessment Appeals.
How many appeals do you get in a typical year? Is it vary?
In a typical regular year or reval year?
Yeah, reval, it's a reval year, so in a reval year.
They might get 60 or 70.
Right. And you have to be there?
No,
No?
I'm not supposed to be there.
Oh,
That's
okay.
the whole
They
point
handle-
of it is
handle
they're aggrieving me.
Okay.
So I'm not present. I'm there, for them to, if they have a technical question, but I'm not there to assist in terms of any valuation issues at that point.
Okay, any questions on assessment appeals? And I guess we have your capital budget request, but it's 25,000 for the reval.
Right, and what was approved last year? Do you remember?
Yeah, I have it right here.
Yeah. So it's a total of 50?
50, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's for,
And that's basically, we have a mandatory $10,000 upgrade to the software we use.
yeah, 25 last year.
They're changing the platform from, I can't remember what it was before, but to an SQL platform. And with that, you have to pay a $10,000 upgrade. Everything's gonna be moved to the cloud, so we no longer will be utilizing local servers, which helps, because I think they had a server especially for
Yeah,
Vision.
correct, yeah.
And that will free up that server to either be used for something else or be retired. So that's a good thing.
So when do you start this, or you already have?
I am in perpetual reval motion. It will be finalized January 31st of 2020, effective for the October 1, 2019 year. And then effective for the July 2020 tax bills.
So what do you think? Houses are worth more or less?
Depends on what your house, what type of house you live in. Unfortunately, the larger homes are not faring too well in town these days.
Yeah, that's what we hear.
But if you have a $300,000 to $450,000 house, you can't keep it on the market. So,
Which is why our school population's growing.
and yeah, and two families. Sorry, Steph. The flats are out of them. They're like off the charts in terms of what people are paying for houses. So.
Okay, any other questions for Betsy? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, have a good night.
You too.
Thanks, Betsy.
Public Works, 1310. Warren Connor's with us. So what have you been doing these past few days, Warren? You know, if you could make these storms not come when it's double time, you know, I mean, holiday, Sunday.
We try to get
I mean,
around
you know,
that.
not a good timing for this storm.
I
All
think
right.
we fared well considering other municipalities that have issues.
Yeah, huh?
So,
Equipment hold up?
yes, it did.
That's good.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, well, we keep them inside now, so they gotta be happy.
That helps.
Okay, your budget, you're looking at a 1%, 1.09% increase. There's not much change. Anything in particular you want to mention to us?
Well, we had some staffing changes. We had a mechanic that moved on, and we're trying to find a replacement that has, let's say, some mechanical background, but he's not going to be a full-time mechanic. He'll be a driver, laborer, whatever, just like any of the other maintainers that we have. So we'll be seeking out somebody to fill that position because storm events and things like that, having personnel takes some of the strain off. Plus, we have the fleet to maintain, so having somebody to assist with the repairs, all tasks are not just one mechanic, you know, that can perform those. Mechanic needs an assistant. So that's what we'll be looking to fill. Other areas in the budget, basically, there's items that moved up or moved down. Our general maintenance budget, which is 55,130, we seem to go over that every year. A lot of things get charged to that line item that are miscellaneous. They're not assigned to a piece of apparatus, a vehicle, or a piece of equipment, and they get charged there. Examples would be hydraulic fittings, you know, when those are being restocked because hoses go, nuts, bolts, things of that nature, and anything from a hardware line that would be purchased, and we get a receipt for it. So rather than try to transfer and hit a line item and reduce that, I'm trying to budget for that service. Salt prices, I used what we got for pricing this year, but every year it's a nuance because we have to go out to bid. We don't know what market fluctuations might be associated. But the pricing reflects what we had for this year. And those are the major changes within the budget itself. One thing that I would like to mention is the rentals and equipment, which is all our contracted services. line 53,610, our tree work is in that. And as everybody has witnessed this year, we've done an awful lot of tree work. We want to continue with that because I still have a lot of tree problems in town. And just the cost of doing business, I've been working with actually 4 vendors this year, but it's a struggle just to get them away from the private businesses and to come in to do our work. So we capitalize on price advantages because we are a municipality, but to get them to do the work has been a struggle because of all the private sector work.
So United Illuminating obviously does tree work also. Is that independent of you, or do you work?
Yes, totally, that has
So
nothing to do with
They
my
cut
life.
down what they want to cut down, and they think is, and then you.
Well,
look at
they
your
work,
own-
it's all roadside what they do, and they're working, it has been historically, but the utility protective zone around the wires, it's been mostly on the state roads.
Yeah.
They've been working on town roads, but it's been much slower paced than what it's been on the state roads. A lot of the trees they take down, it's to our advantage from a pricing perspective because they're doing the work that we would normally have to account for. So, but there's still plenty of trees out there on the other sides of streets where there's no wires, and we have to address those. And I think, given the nature of like the storms of recent, other towns got hit pretty hard, and we had trees down, and there were trees on wires, but nowhere's the significance. I think we're gaining on it, but there's still a decline in trees. We have the ash tree decline, and we also, there's problems with oaks. And when we get weather changes with heavy rains or with drought, they impact our trees. So, you know, I think moving forward, there's the state Agricultural Center has statistics about what the state, Middlesex County, in the middle of the state, pretty much gypsy moth has been what's hitting and attacking, devastating the growth. Being in our area, it's the ash trees. We're in a zone where we've probably got the highest amount of ash decline within any of the municipalities. So it's just what it is. You know, there's a lot of ash here, and there's no way to combat against it. We tried that with the tree over at the library to treat that and lighten the crown up and stuff like that, but once the disease is in the tree, it can't be saved. So that's what we're combating with the trees. And we have other services that are in there which we go out to bid for, and some of those are probably realistic prices, but the line painting service, where to do tree work last year, I didn't do line painting because I had to absorb that money to do tree work. I had to weigh which thing was a higher priority. So when that goes out to bid, I don't know where we're going to be. I put a line item in, there are costs associated with that, but it may be higher because we've been neglecting some of the lines. But that's it pretty much for Public Works.
Any questions on Public Works?
I'm sorry if I missed it. How much do we have for tree work in there?
100,000.
100,000, and that's what we requested last year. But I've gone through that. I had a discussion with Tony that we still have the balance of the year, and I'm already over that line.
And just real quick, because I want to, but how do we determine, or how do you determine what trees to cut down?
They're dead.
But certainly you're not driving around. So the answer is you're driving around looking for dead trees?
We get calls from residents, and as I drive the roads, and anything identified that's either on a decline or it is dead, posing an immediate threat, gets put on a list.
And that could be a threat to a house, or, I mean, does it have to be in our right of way?
Yes, it's on
Okay, so
our highway right away.
It has to be in the right of way.
But there are other trees that are in our grounds that are part of the municipality, that are
Well, right,
under our
right,
jurisdiction.
that we own.
They're less of a risk because nobody's really gonna be in the area, but commuters, pedestrians, things like that, if they're along our highways, they pose a significant risk.
If they're within the right of way, does the homeowner have the ability or the right to say, I don't want that tree taken down?
Any person, not even a resident, if somebody thought that tree has a potential value, they have the right to dispute the removal of the tree. They don't even have to be a resident of the town. But most of the time, like it's the obvious, we get the calls from the resident, or we see it, and there's no say from the resident because it's on our jurisdiction and it's dead, it has to be removed. But anything that the utility companies are doing, they have to have a sign off from the resident. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So I can tell you from personal experience, the storm took a lot of your work away from you. So,
Actually, it did not. It created a lot more work because we have cleanup associated with
I
that.
understand that, but took care of a lot of the trees that need to come down. because they did
Well,
come
you
down.
know, the funny thing about that is storm damage doesn't affect the trees that are problematic. They affect the live trees.
Really?
Well, they were
Yes.
problematic, I gotta tell you, they were very problematic over the weekend. But you're saying as far as, our right of way, how many feet off of the center line?
I tell residents without looking it up, use a rule of 10 feet.
10
But
feet?
I've got areas in town where the lot line, the ownership is in the edge of the road are one and the same. And I've got other areas where we might own 40 feet off the road. It depends on how the road was originally constructed and how the properties were subdivided.
Anything else? Let's move to the next tab, waste management. Anything in particular there, Warren?
In general, there's not.
We were talking the other night about the scale and all that. I guess that's
Right.
in the works.
We are diligently working on that. There's some trees up there that I have to take out because we have to do some site adjustments in order to accommodate the scale.
So as far as that goes, it was explained to me, but I don't know if I really got, you're going behind building where the tower is?
No,
Are you
the
going in
scale
front
is
of
gonna
that?
be right in the middle of the driveway when you come through the gate. But we had to clear the tree line. If you were approaching the gatehouse and you came around a bend, that whole embankment has to be cut away
On the right side?
on the right side. And we might have to widen the driveway a little bit on the left side to accommodate 2 lanes of traffic plus the width of the scale. When we went up there because of elevation issues, the original concept was try to put it on the inbound lane away from the gatehouse, but no matter which lane, in the right-hand side of that or right where most people drive through past the gatehouse, the percentile of slope and the cross slope on the driveway is too severe to put it there, because you have to have an approach to the scale, and then the alignment of the scale from the people driving in so that they could get onto the scale. So when we went up there with the contractor and we did some elevation checks and studying the whole thing, we have to dig out the embankment and basically remodify, put a new driveway in on the right-hand side coming in.
Okay. And then the fees that will be assessed will be only to the commercial contractors, correct? You're not looking
We're
to
studying
increase-
all perspectives on those, but basically, a resident coming with household trash, no, they're not gonna.
Right, but you got a guy like me who's got a pickup, and I usually bring my,
If you're bringing in the conventional payable items, those fees will be assessed based on what you bring in. However, the rates that we're being charged will be adjusted, I think, fairer for everybody, because now it's guesswork as to what quantities are being disposed of.
right, so if a resident's bringing in residential demolition, doing some work on the house,
Right,
right now you pay a fee for that.
right, and it's a minimal fee,
Right, so will the
By
resident
cubic
now,
yard.
will the resident now be weighed?
yes. Because anything that goes in, basically a payable item, the demolition container, there's different terminologies, we call it bulk,
Right, but
or whatever.
just general-
And the brush container, now to try to, because there's airspace, and how one resident would load a vehicle, or, for example, you bring a piece of furniture in, and it's just a cabinet. But if you bust that cabinet down and lay it down flat, the physical space that takes place is different, so the cubic yards changes, and now it's still by weight. So we pay more by weight to dispose of it, even though the item weighs the same, whether it's got airspace or not.
Okay.
And so we would save on the hauls because the volume within the container has a limited space.
Right.
So there's a lot of ways that we have to work at it, and Kelly's got a lot of pricing from other municipalities, and we'll be working on that and coming back to the boards to talk about fee structures.
Okay, so it's not going to be the vehicle coming in as much as is what's in the vehicle.
Correct.
Right.
Nobody pays for the vehicle.
I know, I'm just saying, where I used to bring the stuff into the back of my Jeep, cram it all in the back.
Right, if it's general small
it's just
quantities
general-
like that, you wouldn't be weighed.
Household refuse.
No,
I'm not
no,
gonna be
no
weighed.
weights. We're not stopping every vehicle that comes in to be weighed.
Okay.
But the payable items that would normally be paid for, the discrepancies that we can see are the number of hauls that are made, and then the weight factors surrounding the cubic yard, because it's a guesstimate. You and I can go out to a vehicle and measure it, and if you're the disposer of it, you can say, I only got a cubic yard, and then you measure it up and you find out you got 4 cubic yards.
Right.
So, you know, there are discrepancies, and that way everybody's getting a fair deal on what's being disposed of.
Sure, I guess that's the only concern, because there's a lot of talk up at the transfer station about this particular issue.
It's all rumor. You have to wait for the facts. The haulers that come in there and use it on a regular basis, it's controls over them as well.
Right. So we're not concerned about that, because I know they pay everywhere else.
Yes.
And they get a bargain coming to Woodbridge. So now
Yes.
they're gonna start paying. Are we concerned that they're gonna go somewhere else, or?
If they want to go somewhere else, which I don't know if they'd be allowed to because of the disposal restrictions. Everybody needs a permit to dispose of wherever you are. Now, if they want to take it to the trash that they collected, they want to drive to Bridgeport, for instance, and dispose of it, they're going to be losing money and transit time. You know, they're not going to dispute it. Trust me. And I think they've been taking advantage of us in a lot of ways for many, many years. You know, they pay a token fee just to be what we call a registered user in town.
Right.
And it's nothing more than like renewing their registration. And that's all it is. But, you know.
So just to, if we're basically passing along charges that we pay, right? So
Right,
there's
and I
tipping
understand
fees
that.
and transportation, so.
If they know
garbage
about it, right?
declines,
If
it
they've
goes-
been notified.
If it goes somewhere else,
They
then
know.
we don't have to pay, we won't pay the
Right,
tipping fee.
yeah.
and the
We don't have the fee structures ironed out yet. And the way we have to do the accounting with the software that'll be installed and everything else, we have to look at those to set the prices firm. We have to come before the boards and modify our own policies. And so once that's established, everybody will know more. To have it right now, to have anybody, you know, up there discussing it, it's without any merit because there's no facts that they're discussing.
That doesn't stop residents from talking. Believe me.
No. But,
No,
but
I'm just saying that's an issue, and it's not, you know, the guys up there are great. They say, look, it's happening, we're really not sure what's gonna happen,
right.
but.
No, they
this-
know that it's not going to be every single vehicle that comes in there. That's not what the
So they're
intent
gonna have to,
is.
these guys are gonna have to be more proactive. Because now
Very
sometimes
proactive.
you find them down where the household trash is, and you'll see a truck pull in with construction or demolition, and they start throwing it in there, you know. You
Correct.
have to be watching these guys.
Correct.
Because right now, it's kind of, you
And
know,
with the installation of the scale, any vehicle that, if they're going to be at that container, let's say, disposing, they're just not, they'll have to pull out and come back on.
Somebody's
if
gonna have to
they
be
get
making
their
sure
bicycle.
they're getting
Well,
weighed.
somebody's supposed to be there. The gatehouse always intended, the attendant is supposed to be there to
Yeah.
monitor, but even when we were up there meeting to discuss where the scale would go and get measurements, the people come in there at such a high rate of speed,
Yeah.
and they fly by, they don't even, you know, have their stickers on their windows. They might have them in their glove box or in their person, but they come in there, you gotta stand out of the way. We almost need radar on the road.
Right now, are you anticipating any increase in staffing once we get the scale in there?
I don't believe so, because 2 men can handle it. I mean, there's other municipalities that have, I'll call them part-time staff, but they rotate. There might be 3 men, for example, in another municipality that I'm talking about and know how they operate, but basically it's a 2-man operation. The premise of our operation is still going to be the same. You have an attendant on the platform and you have an attendant at the gatehouse. And the person at the gatehouse is going to have all the responsibility because they're going to have to monitor what vehicles come in. Now, it may, let's say, on a busy day, impair the traffic flow a little bit, because they're gonna be monitoring that vehicle to see what they have. I don't live in town, but when I dispose of stuff, I have to go to the scale house, whether I'm just throwing out a bag of trash. I'm not charged for it, but I'm weighed. They weigh, what the vehicle is, and depending on what your content is, and they get kind of a generic weight per vehicle. Most households, their household trash is, 25 to 40 pounds. They don't, so they would add that weight, even though the vehicle went on the scale, they would check that off that, what kind of goes into the regular waste. And that way there's a better accounting. And anything that we're paying for, top dollar for disposal, we have better control over. And the vehicles that come in to collect trash, we know exactly what they're coming in, because we'll have periodic weight checks on their vehicles, so we'll have a tar weight on that vehicle. So they won't have to be, basically, it's just the weigh on the way in, we'll have the tar weight, so that tar weight, will be from the gross weight will be deducted, so we'll know that.
So you're not saying that every single vehicle coming in there with trash is gonna get weighed, are you?
It's for the haulers and the people disposing pay items.
Right, so if you come in there
So
with
if you
5
go
bags
in
of
now with
trash.
recyclables and
Right.
trash,
Okay,
nothing's gonna change.
okay. And it's my understanding, and I don't know if there's something we've gotta talk to the haulers about, that they're already charging, Woodbridge what they're charging other towns that they pay for, so if they're thinking of raising the prices to cover this, somebody should let them know that.
You're saying to the residents?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's,
We're not getting a break because of the way we handle our trash at the landfill,
no.
Okay,
They're gonna tell us we were.
yeah.
No, they've been forewarned. They know.
How many haulers are we talking about, Warren?
Of you talking about residential collection?
Yeah.
Or you talking, we have one hauler to haul our material out.
No, how
That's
many
okay.
haulers that come in that we're gonna be charging now?
Well, there's two contractors, but one of the contractors has multiple trucks.
Okay,
The other guy has one truck. I heard, I haven't seen it, he upgraded to it. The guy that's got the smaller of the collection
Yeah.
has, I think, 2 trucks now, or he upgraded his truck, something of that nature.
well, we can say the names, it's Bria and Santana?
Santana's the smaller of the
Right.
two. And so Bria has more trucks.
Bria's the bigger one, right, okay. All right, any other questions on waste management?
So just is the $9,500 increase in the bulk waste haul and disposal, is that because the fees are going
Well,
up?
the fees right now, the contract for this year, they retain the fees, but the hauling costs, those rates will have to be reestablished. Come June, it's gonna be a whole new thing. And the rates from where they are now, they might have to be adjusted from what we have proposed here. Because went in to check our weights and what our haul fees are right now, and we're estimating where that's gonna be. But I don't believe fees are gonna go down. People are still in business to make a profit, and
So are you using current fees, or did you add?
current fees are being used.
Okay, so you just think we're gonna be hauling more trash, is that why?
Well, the recycling costs in themselves have gone up.
Correct.
So that's incorporated in.
Yeah, that we may have to increase that. Depends where the recycling market is and if this gets resolved.
Mhm.
But that's a portion of that.
That and our general, the tip fees, they're based on current pricing, and there's tonnage factors, and those are tracked, and we get, like on the recycling, we get reports once a month, what we've done and deposited. There's not big variations in that,
Okay.
so, but the market costs, whatever's being charged for that, those might change, and we're anticipating that to increase because there are, there's discussions. Look what's happening in Hartford. The plant broke down up there, and trash is all over the place, and they have to truck the stuff out. But the haulers have been good, and they haven't been really dramatically hitting us. There's some discrepancies in costs of percentages, depending on where the container goes, and that's what it comes down to. So
Okay.
we tried to estimate it as closely as we could.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Thank you very much, Warren. Hopefully you get some peace the next week or so.
Rain.
Rain,
what
that's
we're-
good, that's good.
Rain, that's
Clear
warmer.
clear all the ice off the trees, I hope. All right, quickly, let's do, Tony, you're gonna do Conservation Commission? 1610? There's not much there.
Oh,
Maybe
well,
just
wait. There's the $8,000.
$8,000, right. That's the only thing we gotta talk about.
I mean, there's not much to say about it other than this is
This is the annual ask.
Right, correct.
Okay.
Sorry, the annual ask they asked for.
And then 1620,
For what purpose?
Economic
Hire
Development. Is there anything to talk about there? Really nothing.
Nothing significant.
Okay. Let's move on then to, unless anybody has a question, let's move on then to Town Clerk.
There's just a printing of a map.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got it.
Town Clerk is 1125. 1125.
I mean, did they, have they produced the map?
Hi, Stephanie.
Hello, how are you?
Good. What would you like to tell us?
Well, I'm not sure where the registrar of voters are, but I'm here, so,
Okay, well, you're first.
yeah.
It's okay.
I've lowered a lot of items in the budget because next year isn't going to be as busy as this year, but we also can come up with 4 presidential preference primaries
Yeah.
the following February, so. PPPs. I'm gonna be a little overspent on my election supplies. I had asked for 12,000 this year, but you only gave me 8, so I think I'm gonna end up with about 11,500. And the legal ads might go over. I just got a bill for another $1,000 for the caucuses. We had to put in a Republican and a Democratic caucus, the legal ads for those. And,
Where do you put your ads?
well, I have the same problem Pat does. I have to put them in with a certain period of time. Woodbridge Town News only comes out once every 3 weeks. They would charge us $75.
I know.
New Haven Register just charged me $545 for one of the
What bothers me
ads.
about this, the New Haven Register, not your fault, I'm not,
Oh, no, I know.
the New Haven Register is not delivered to every home.
It isn't.
People subscribe
Oh,
to it.
yeah, right.
And the
So
Woodbridge
that
Town
says to
News
me, I was
is.
just saying, Tony, this
Yeah.
is a legislative issue,
Yeah.
so I'm on it.
We have tried,
That
you
really
know, with our
is wrong.
The
association,
legislation was to have like a website that could have all legal ads on it.
right.
That was the legislation.
Wouldn't that be
Yeah.
wonderful?
Yeah.
That never-
Well, it's failed so
Right,
far, but,
Well, watch.
you know, we'll keep
Pat,
trying
try again.
with our organizations,
That's
but,
not right. You know,
no,
there-
it isn't, because we don't have that
saying
much money.
It has to be in every home, and yet if you don't buy the New Haven Register, you're not gonna get it anyway, so.
Right.
Plus, it's
Not a
this
lot of people
big,
in
you gotta
town
really
get the
look
New
for
Haven
it. It's
Register
not like
any
it-
longer.
At least the
Yeah.
Woodbridge Town News, it's larger, so, you know, bigger print.
It is, and it's a
It's
lot
wrong.
cheaper, a lot cheaper.
We'll try again. It's, I will try.
So my election line item is gonna be over, my, legal ads will probably end up being over. The Secretary of State's office has decided that they want to, invest in early voting. We're not sure how much that's gonna cost, and it's probably gonna come through the town clerk's office. I don't even know how it works. They don't know how it works yet, so that's gonna be an issue. Upcoming this year or next year, I'm not sure. I haven't put anything in the budget because I'm not sure what to put in yet. We'll have to wait and see. But do you have any questions?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So now what? What are we waiting for here? We got a registrar coming in? Can we do government access TV?
Sure.
Who's doing that?
We got
Who? That's 11:35.
Thanks, Deb. Thank you. See ya.
Can we have a few words about use of microphones, folks?
Sure.
When we can hear Tony, we can't hear Sandy. When we can hear Sandy, we can't hear Tony. We can't hear Tom because the microphone is pointed
the
at
wrong
Paul. Paul sounds really great. There's nobody sitting at the phone that's by Mika's son. We can move things over maybe.
Okay, everybody got that?
Slide down.
Yeah.
Tom, take the one that's in front of you.
And Joe Crisco isn't allowed to talk at all.
That's horrible.
We can do that.
Wait a minute, Pat left.
This is all new to us, Pooh.
I know.
Where are those little round things used to be? They're gone?
I've got them.
Okay.
I don't know if I
All
could
right,
plug them
everybody
in.
got that? So when you talk, if you're gonna, do this,
Yeah,
do that.
Okay.
All right?
yeah. And we've eliminated the scratchiness on the bottom with the mouse pads, which we inherited from Beecher Road School. Everything's reusable.
Okay.
And we have a plan, possibly, we have the ability to add 4 more microphones. But it doesn't help unless you're conscious of it pointing at you, even if you're not looking at it. So,
We got it.
you know,
Okay.
okay.
If I see
There's
somebody
that.
not doing it, I'll make sure they do.
Okay,
I'll be a police officer here. Adam, that's
Okay,
20,
now
we need a
that's
director.
26 officers.
a director.
I'll make sure.
Okay.
That's important, because sometimes I watch meetings and I'm like, what is he saying? I can't hear him, so, I hear you.
I know, we keep,
We'll all be aware of that.
we slide things up and down, but
Okay.
we'll do it, and we'll continue to do our best. What do you want to know?
anything in
We
particular?
started using interns from Southern, and it was fun. We got some interesting things out of it, but like the high school students, they grow up and go away, and I spent a lot of time, which really bumped up the hours I was putting into the job. So I haven't gone looking for interns yet for this coming semester or the summer. It might pay off in the long run. But high school students are our other option, and as more is required from them for graduation, it's hard to ask them to put time into this. But, we'll keep doing it. Grants, we'll keep pursuing grants. I still have some money left over because we found cheaper ways to do it. I think I'd like to get the other 4 microphones with the remainder in my budget. What else can I tell you?
Question.
Yeah.
Speaking to my mic. I know that the meetings are recorded and they're put onto your YouTube channel. Is there any way to watch them live online?
We were streaming through YouTube till I made a mistake with some music, and I'm on probation until the end of February. We can go back to streaming to YouTube in March.
Oh, in March. Okay.
There's a story there. She got banned.
Okay.
I'm not asking that question.
It will be done,
Okay.
and it won't cost the town anything. We did have a live streaming service with a business from Wallingford that cost us $12,000 a year. And I kept trying to publicize it, but we weren't getting any hits. So when I talked with the commission about it, it didn't seem like a good cost for the number of people that were watching. So we quit it, and then we found the streaming on YouTube, but the thing with that is being very, very careful with the music you put on.
Okay.
Anything else? Thank you, Paul.
Okay.
Now, who's doing the center, Tony?
Do we have to go
Tony.
back?
Yeah, we should go back to,
We got economic
minute.
development.
yeah. go back
Yeah, I
to-
know, I just want to,
Me. I'll do
you're
the
doing
rest
the
of
center,
I'm
you're
doing the rest of
you're
these.
doing the rest of these? All
Yeah.
right.
Except the registrars. Okay.
1190, right?
1620, this is economic development.
1620.
Yes,
Well, I've come before you to ask for money for the Economic Development Commission. We've changed the structure a little bit in that Betsy Agla is now staffing our commission, and so the money has switched a bit because we used to have to pay Tony overtime because I guess she's union, and Betsy doesn't require that. So our request looks different than it has in the past. And also we had the Cirque project last year, which also, I don't think was from our budget, it was from your budget and helped us fund. But we pretty much have a really bare bones budget. We're asking for $3,000 for professional services. Sorry, we're no longer asking for the, I read the wrong column. We're no longer asking professional services, as I said, because Betsy will be staffing that. We're asking for $1,000 for printing and binding, $200 for professional
development conferences, most of which I think Betsy's going to attend, and she's already signed up for a few of those for this year and would like to for next year. We'd like 150 for professional development for the commissioners, to the extent we would like to attend some conferences, and 500 for meeting supplies. We found it a great way to reach our business community and property owners is to host breakfasts, and those feeding people costs money.
So you want 1,000 or 1,500 for printing and binding?
15.
I have on this 1,000, but maybe I have the wrong. Maybe I have a.
Yeah, it says 1,500.
We have
Okay,
1,500.
okay,
yeah.
so
It's for
and then
the map.
what?
The map.
Okay, so that was added after the last
Yeah,
meeting then.
yeah.
I don't have the most recent draft. Yes, we're hoping to do a map, which will be at local businesses, which will show existing businesses. So if you would walk into Amity Bike, for instance, to repair your bike, then you'd be able to, while waiting for your bike to repair, you'd be able to look at the map and then know what restaurants and stores you could frequent in the area.
Is your commission directly involved with the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce?
Not directly
Not
involved
directly.
because they're their own organization, but we do have we have worked with them tangentially in the past.
Is there a fee for joining that?
Yes, there's a huge fee. We didn't ask for that. Tony, do you have any idea? I forget what. It's pretty expensive to join, and we can't join. I mean, you can budget it, and we can join, but we haven't asked for that at this point. There is no Woodbridge Chamber of Commerce.
No, we're under the auspices of Greater New Haven.
Right.
Do you know how much it is to join that?
I don't recall. I think it's a couple of $1,000.
A couple of thousand?
But we do have one of our current commissioners, Jamie Scott is now the executive director of the New Haven Manufacturing Association, and so through him, we have a pretty good finger on our pulse as to what's going on in New Haven Chamber of Commerce. But no, we're not a member, and I don't know actually if municipalities tend to join that. But we also do not have any members of our commissioners that are members of it. So I mean, I'd be happy to join. We're happy to investigate whether we can join individually or as a unit.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thanks. No.
Okay, thank you.
For those of you who are Yankee fans, for the first time in history, a player was unanimously elected to the Hall of Fame.
Oh,
Mariano.
it's great.
Take that, Red Sox.
He does this. Yeah, he does it.
Not A-Rod.
Okay.
All righty. The center, 1190. It's kind of nothing, but here, so.
It's another nothing.
The center is basically utilities.
Any questions on that?
Pat, just why does the electric cost so much for an empty building?
It's not empty. Center
It's
building?
not-
Oh, the center. I'm
The
sorry.
center.
The center. I'm thinking
You were
of the
thinking
old
the front-
firehouse.
The old Fonda Firehouse.
Yes, sorry.
That's
No,
next.
there's a lot of people in the center.
They're both old buildings.
Sorry.
So now we're even.
Yeah.
We're even.
Your Hall of
I made a
Fame,
crazy
you know,
remark, you made a
caught me off.
All right. That's that. Former fire station, 1191. All right, Sandy, now you can answer.
Now I can answer my question.
Why is $2,000?
It's explained.
Yeah.
It's a fixed budget, so we're not going to worry about
Answer
it.
on the next
Yes,
page.
yes.
All right, 1192, Country Club of Woodbridge.
I have a couple of comments on this one.
$61,000.
So we have been looking into if we should or could abandon the building or not. Abandoning the building, basically, it's a savings of about $40,000 a year. I got it here. And the reason is about $56,000 in utility savings, water, heat, electricity, telephone, security, et cetera, et cetera. But we'd have to pay additional insurance. We'd have to pay for a vacant property policy, which is about $15,000. That's actually the net between taking the building off the regular policy and adding a vacant property policy. So that's the sort of the budget side of it. There's a lot of things to consider about this move. One would be there's a list of requirements that we'd have to work with the building official and the fire marshal. And but there are some other things to consider, including the building security. There would be no outdoor lighting unless we somehow provide for it. And a building tends to deteriorate quicker if you don't have it heated and there are utilities there. So these are all things to consider with this budget. Otherwise, this would be the budget that we would put forward to at least try to keep it going under its current condition.
So the 6150 is if we abandon the building?
It's not. That's if we keep it the way it is.
We currently keep it the way it is?
Right.
You're saying if we
I just
do
thought I'd
abandon
mention that
it?
because it was discussed on the staff level and it's been asked at various meetings. Why do we need to heat the building? Why do we need to?
So you'd have to fence it, right?
Well, we've worked with Terry and with Joe Capucci about making sure there's no trespassing in the building, whether it's fenced, whether it's boarded up, whether it's locked. I mean, it's just as long as you don't have people entering the building.
And then at some point, we're in direct conflict with our blight ordinance, because it's gonna deteriorate.
That's possible.
Right? So.
Didn't think of that.
Aren't we, right now, it's like $1 million to drop it?
Yeah.
Dispose of it? Is that the last number I heard? Pardon me?
I don't know.
Well, if we can get the thing approved, they're gonna do it for us.
And then you could.
I'm just saying, if say it doesn't happen,
Not gonna be cheap.
then we continue to have a building that will be a blight. It is now, right? We're heating it.
Mm-hmm.
My only concerns would be, as much as we say we've secured it, I think it's going to be animals inside there that we can't keep out, possibly people living in there,
right?
Kids getting in there,
Yep.
and we don't
Well,
need
why
that
can't they get in
liability.
there now?
Pardon me?
Why can't they get in there now?
Exactly.
They can, but I'm saying if right now it's heated and we were doing some work up there. Right?
No, I understand, but to the point of people getting in, I think
They
they'd
could.
rather get in there now while it's heated. I'm just asking, why can't they?
Well,
get in
we
there
do
now?
have we
I
do
don't
have
know why that's a
we do have
concern.
some security. I mean, some
It's
alarms
lit,
and
there's
stuff.
some lighting right
Yeah,
outside, as
yeah.
I recall. Not a lot, but now that it's on television.
Right, but again, at some point it's going to have to get torn down. Now, I know that's going to be a part of any deal that we strike with a contractor, builder, whatever it happens to be. But I think there's a real possibility that it's going to continue to sit there, and I think we need to consider how much it's going to cost us to. We may have to eat the entire piece of property, and the bonding and all that we've got into it. We're also going to have to figure out how much it's going to cost us to drop it if it fails again.
Didn't we have a number on that, Tom?
We have in the past. I'm not sure how applicable they are to us because they're not prevailing wage numbers, and we would have to pay prevailing wage. And I'm not sure, but this was a while back. It was maybe 400,000 maybe.
And what's the advantage of heating it? If it's not usable, if it's...
Well, the mice like to be warm.
No, I can understand that.
Squirrels,
We're doing now, do we have a sprinkler
We heat it
system?
to keep the sprinkler.
Oh, because of the
Protection
sprinklers.
system,
Yeah,
right.
correct.
Well, we really
And the
had
fire
that because
protection
we were using the bottom floor for the pool,
That's true too.
which we're
Yep.
not using anymore.
Right.
Because
True.
the pool is,
Right,
so.
so this has come up in discussion, but
Maybe we can adjust these.
Whether we heat it or not, we're eventually going to have to take it down.
Someone's going to.
Well, someone.
Someone is going
Right.
At
to.
some point.
Eventually.
But I mean, the question now is whether we want to spend $15,000 a year or $60,000 a year.
So it's a bigger issue. I think that people need to understand it's a bigger issue than just letting the property go to seed, which it already has, and the town just having to swallow the debt. But we also, I think it also needs to be pointed out that if this is defeated again, we're gonna have to spend some serious money to get rid of that building, because day after day, it's gonna continue to become more and more dangerous. And if anything happens inside and first responders have to get in there, it's gonna be dangerous.
Is
So,
it dangerous now?
it is dangerous now, but now it's at least heated and sprinklered in some areas. So that's a big deal. If we decide to stop that, then you now have a building that's basically unprotected for fire, and will be, I think, an attractive nuisance, I think is the legal term. And I think that's something we need to look at as well.
I'm sure we're also paying insurance premiums on that building, which aren't in this budget, so
Right.
that would be in our,
Well,
right?
yeah, the insurance is about $6,000.
There you go. So make that
So it's
67.
It's like 21 for the vacant property policy and 6 for the savings on the insurance.
Yeah.
That's 15.
Well, something else to remember.
Something to think about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else?
Well, they took down the Tappan Zee Bridge. This isn't the so can't we do that?
Yeah, it's just as pretty.
Yeah. I'll call Mario Cuomo.
Can I just ask, why do we have a telephone line for a building? Like,
Well, come on,
It's
they
for
gotta have
the,
telephone service.
the-
For the
yeah,
alarm?
it's for the
Mice?
alarm lines, yeah.
Mice and the squirrels.
we pay more for telephone than we do for security?
That's the,
That's the alarm, isn't it?
yeah, those are for the telephone. There's several. There's for the security, for the fire alarm.
Just seems odd that the,
Yeah.
the phone charge would be more than the actual alarm charge.
Mhm.
Why do we, yes, why do we have to insure this building?
What?
Why do we have to insure this building? I mean,
Liability.
Oh, liability, that's liability,
That's where
yes.
all the-
I'm
that's
talking
where a
about
lot
the
of it-
bill, that's the biggest part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Okay. All right, next is, and last, do we know if registrar's coming back here? Okay, well, they're 35 minutes late, I guess. EMS, 1240.
EMS. This is basically the AMR
This is
contract.
contractual, right?
Yeah, and the contract is up next fiscal year,
Okay,
so we did not put an increase in,
okay.
because we're,
So now what do we do?
Registrars.
we can see if they come back another night,
If you
or
want,
We can
we
put
can
them
have
on
them come another night.
do they know they're around tonight?
Let's have them come another night. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we can't sit here waiting.
yeah.
No, I
Just
just
put
put
them
them
on
on.
another.
Take his money away.
We'll just
Take
have them
them
come
on.
another night.
Yeah,
if you
so
want.
they get nothing.
Well, what if they
Or
walk
just
in
come-
while we're walking out? What do we do then?
We circle back.
Hey, you know what? Let's go. All right, thank you. See you Thursday.
Okay, thank you.
Listen, I'm talking.